All right, I'm frequently asked if I could give everybody a tutorial on my stovetop steak recipe, so here it is. This is a dinner that is just complicated enough to really impress whomever you may be cooking this for, whether that's family, friends, loved one, you want to impress a date. This will do it. So the nice thing about this is you can do this steak recipe any time of year. You know, you don't need your grill. If you live in a cold weather city like I do in Chicago, you can't get to your grill for a couple months normally. You can make this steak anytime. I also think that it happens to turn out better than any steak you're ever going to make. And I love grilling. I grill plenty in the summer, love to grill steak. But if you've got a nice filet or a ribeye or a New York strip steak, I think this is the best way to prepare it. Now, I would not recommend doing this a bone-in cut here. You know, if you wanted a porterhouse or a bone-in filet even, or a bone-in ribeye, that you're going to have to do out in your grill or in your broiler. You got some sweet broccoli, little baby broccolini there that we're just going to blanch and then quickly saute with some olive oil and some garlic and some lemon. And remember, with the knife, knuckles like this. All right, you don't want your hand out like this. God forbid something slips, you're in trouble. This way, you're protecting your fingertips. Worst thing happen, maybe a slice, some skin off, but you're not losing the tip of a finger. So always like this and just use this finger to kind of guide it. All right, I've got some water boiling. We're going to blanch our little broccolis here, or broccolini. And blanching just means into hot water for no more than probably 90 seconds. That's all we're going to do here. And then we're going to shock it. We're going to take it right out of the hot water, out of the boiling water, and we have our ice bath ready. So just water and ice in a bowl. And we're literally going to take it from one to the other and shock it. That way it stops the cooking immediately and the color remains this beautiful, vibrant green. And that's how you want to serve it. And the nice thing is you can do this way ahead of time. I mean, hours ahead of time as you're preparing. So we're going to blanch it in the boiling water, and then we're going to take it right into the ice bath. So I'm just going to drop it in. And like I said, check your clock or count to 90. That's all you need. You need about 90 seconds, maybe 100 seconds in the boiling water, and that's it. All right, my broccolini has been cooking for about 90 seconds here, so right into our ice bath. We'll shock it, we'll stop the cooking process, and we'll be good to go. All right, time to talk about the main attraction. That is the steak. Again, we're going to do filet, beautiful. So before I start cooking this, a few important things. Take your meat out, your protein out. Sounds awkward, take your meat out. Take your protein out of the fridge about 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes or so before you're going to cook it. You don't want a cold piece of chicken, pork chop, whatever it might be, steak, lamb, whatever it is, whatever protein you're cooking. You don't want it to be ice cold and then immediately onto your grill or into your oven, or in this case, into a hot pan. Don't worry about any bacteria creeping in. We're not leaving it out for 3 hours. It's literally about 30 minutes. You're absolutely fine. So always temper your protein before you cook it. So my steak has been resting at room temperature for about 45 minutes. Another thing that's important to note is when to season. You know, I wouldn't put my salt on and let it sit there for 5 or 10 minutes, because the minute you put the salt on, it's going to start taking the liquid out. We don't want that to happen. So I like to, just before I put it onto the grill or into the pan, I like to go ahead and season my steak, my pork chops, whatever it happens to be, right before we're going to cook it. So I'm going to turn the pan on to let it heat up. You need a super hot pan for this to work. The pan, and the fat in it, the oil, the butter, has to be hot for the sear to happen. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And that is probably the most crucial step in all of this, is achieving that beautiful sear. You'll see the golden brown, the beautiful brown color that we get on it, and that's going to lock in all the flavor. It's going to make the steak great. And you could use cast iron if you want. This is just a nonstick pan. You could certainly use cast iron. I like to season pretty simply. This is such a nice piece of meat. You know, a good steak doesn't need a lot. For me, it's just kosher salt, fresh cracked black pepper, and I like to put a little granulated garlic, and that's it. This is a pretty thick cut, obviously. If you're doing a ribeye or if you're doing a strip steak, you're not going to put as much salt, but I'm going to season this pretty liberally because it's such a thick piece of meat. So the thicker it is, the more liberal you're going to have to be with your seasoning. And a little cracked black pepper. I like black pepper a lot. And then some garlic. And that's it. I'll try to get my sides coated here too. As I flip it over, we're going to season both sides. All right, so my pan's been heating up. I'm going to add some oil. I'm going to add a little butter. And again, in order for this to work, that pan needs to be super hot. And in we go. And you got to hear that sear. If you don't, you got to start over. Seriously. It is the most important step. Now I'm going to cook this. I like my steak pretty rare. I like a good medium rare. Steak about this thick, I'll probably do about 4 minutes aside here. And then I'm going to finish it in a 425 degree oven for about another 4 minutes. So it should take about, roughly 12 minutes of cooking time. And again, depending on the thickness. For a steak like this, we're talking 10 to 12 minutes for a nice medium rare. All right, my steak's been cooking on one side for about 4 minutes. We're going to flip it. And I'll show you here. That's what you want. Beautiful sear. Now, what we're going to do is, remember at the beginning we were talking about some of that parsley, the thyme, rosemary. You could use thyme if you want, and garlic. I'm just going to throw it in. It's going to pop a little bit. And I'm going to add a nice big pat of butter. And I want the garlic and the rosemary to start kind of infusing that butter and the fat that we have in the pan. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to baste this. So all that fat I'm going to gather down to the side. And I'm going to baste. Just like that. And you can already smell the garlic and the rosemary. Beautiful. About another 4 minutes, and then into the oven. All right, just got the steak out of the oven. I'm going to baste it one final time. Take it out of the pan and let it rest. Look how beautiful the color is on that. Let it rest at least 5 minutes. And what we can do is, while we let our steak rest, we'll finish our side dish. We blanched our broccolini. Look how gorgeous. Beautiful green color. That's because we blanched it in the boiling water for about 90 seconds and then into the ice bath. All I'm going to do now is get a little pan hot. All right, our oil's hot. Garlic in. Now this is going to go quick. Garlic goes from being perfect to burnt very quickly. So you want to make sure you got everything set and ready to go. We don't want our garlic to burn. So let's get it in. A little kosher salt. Some black pepper. Lemon juice. Just kind of saute it around. Beautiful. Turn our fire off. There we got it. There it is. A little lemon juice, a little olive oil. And there it is, guys. Beautiful. Piece of cake. A great dish to really impress that someone special.